So this is part 2 of Understanding Aquarius through the Tarot and its associated cards. This is the Minor Arcana. Of course, I didn't show my my Vampire Tarot deck art for it because I don't feel like it's too different. I feel like the interpretation is very the same, but if you wanted to see it, this is her. She's lovely. Very similar iconography, except that she's wearing a purple dress and not naked. She has the 8-pointed star there, the roses, and instead of water, it's blood, because it's a vampire deck. I do love the interpretation here of the blood on the gravestone as the ego death that is necessary to really listen to, you know, the spiritual world and embody it in the world. So on to the Minor Arcana. The cards associated with Aquarius are the 5, 6, and 7 of swords. Now, the sword suit is the air suit. It is associated with the air signs, Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini. So each one gets a section of cards. And this one, of course, is the middle point. And as in my previous video, I was talking about sometimes a shadowed Aquarius gets put into dichotomous thinking of black and white thinking. I know it's best. The ends justifying the means, you know, or they're so very wounded that they just give away everything, you know, either way. And that leads me to the 5 of Swords, which is Venus in Aquarius. So Venus is the planet of abundance, right? It's the planet of love and beauty and all of these things, but it's also the planet of money and land and the earth. It's an earth energy element. And so when you put the earth and the air together, as someone once explained it to me when I was learning astrology, you know, you have certain aspects. If you put earth and air together, you get deserts, right? You get the wind shaping the landscape. You have but it's slow and it erodes away, right? It has to be this kind of brutality and repeated whipping. And that is the 5 of Swords energy. It's also the card of the ends justifying the means, like overpowering and punishing energy. So when it comes up in a reading, whoever you identify with, this one or this one, I think most of us like to identify with this one because we don't want to ever admit we're this one, when in fact we do both. We do both. But this is that Machiavellian card. And if you know what that means, great. But if you don't, Machiavelli was an author. He wrote the book The Prince, which became this kind of manifesto of authoritarian dictatorship. Now, most of the time, people read it as a what not to do because it failed. He was terrible at it. Didn't work. But he also is known for these great quotes of the ends justifying the means, and it's far better to be feared than to be loved. And this card, being the 5, which is the pivotal point of change and chaos, is the point where we learn something, or need to learn something, or get thrust into a situation where we learn. And of course, the other side of that, with Aquarius, not as the villain, but as the victim, there's that big humanitarian, charitable aspect of the star, which is divine charity, being divinely favored. Sometimes they can feel like they are giving. They'll give of themselves until they sacrifice parts of themselves, right? So they'll just give and give and give. However, in this is when the Aquarius says, you know what, there's nothing more for me here. And that is a trait of Aquarius, where they can just cut and go. They're easy to let everything drop. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not deep. It just means that air quality lets them disconnect from the emotions of it a little more easily than others. And so they'll be easy to quick cut and run. They'll be like, I'm defeated here. There's nothing more for me to salvage. And the lesson there is that sometimes it is worth turning around and trying to pick those swords back up, those 2 on the ground. So, you know, the shadow and the light aspects on a card that is notoriously like hardened. There are shadow and light aspects to both. So you go through, this guy goes through this story right here. He goes through either being the victim or the oppressor here. And there's a victory or there's a defeat. Either way, it feels hollow. If it's a victory, it feels empty. There's missing something. And what is missing is, this is a very airy card, airy and earth. It's very barren. It's very windswept. It's very, you know, the clouds and everything looks kind of angry and jagged. And think of the winds shaping the caverns, right? which is why we add Mercury to Aquarius, where they have to think. As I said, the Aquarius and the air signs are the collectors of knowledge and communication and education. And so they add the water in this card. This is the Mercury in Aquarius. It's going, because Mercury is a traveler, right? It's the short room-term travel. But you can see the rough waters here of the 5 card going to smoother waters here. Realizing that what they fought for in that previous card wasn't necessarily what they wanted, or did not have the depth and the ideas that they wanted. So they have to go on a journey, whether it's inward, still waters, learning that the still waters have to run deep, or an actual physical journey and travel. I'm going to show you my other deck on that one, because I think it's an interesting. So this is the vampire deck version, which doesn't speak of anything of travel, but you see he's pointing to his throat, his communication skills. And the crow is whispering in his ear, like divine wisdom. And he's pointing it at himself. He's realizing that he has to turn that inward and learn and grow and speak the truth about that experience or about the lessons learned. So, still a journey. So, they collect the information, they're processing the information through that journeying and traveling, or collecting more information, or finding their emotional depth, which leads to the moon, the emotional body in Aquarius. And that brings us to this card, the 7 of Swords. So the 7 of Swords, when it comes up in a card reading, speaks of deception, of lying, of evasion, of trust issues, of all of these things. But it also is impulsiveness, spontaneity. And, if you look at it, there's not a shadow in there. It's all out in the open. It's you can't hide it. It's very well lit, and there's no, he's not even casting a shadow. So it's taking this, you take the brutal, relentless battering, and you go on this inward journey, and you process your feelings about it, and you gain the wisdom and of the lesson learned from however you experienced it, and then you use your emotions to fuel your way forward. So in this one, that could be for shadow stuff, like bad stuff and good stuff. Here it could be, well, they screwed me, so I'm going to screw others, Or it could be like, look at him. Who walks like that? It's the Ministry of Silly Walks. And you saw someone walking on their tippy toes like this, carrying a bunch of swords. That is not comfortable or possible. Why are you doing that way? That is not an efficient way to... And Aquarius goes, because it works for me. And that's the light side, where it's like, no, I realize that even if I look kooky and crazy to everyone else around me, if this is my truth and my authenticity, I'm going to do it. And it's really important that new tarot readers get really comfortable with the sword suit. I always find that this is the suit that trips people up the most, because they want things to be positive and love and light and, nicey and pretty. And the swords say, no. Life is messy. Life is shades of gray. And we're going to cut away the bullshit so you can get to the truth and have these beautiful moments. But you have to sit in the other ones too. And Aquarius and most air signs are the ones who can emotionally disconnect and be like, oh, that's bullshit. And then remove the ego from it a little easier. And so that's why air and swords, and they're not afraid to confront that shadow stuff. So it's not a bad thing, especially when you realize that it's all out in the open. It's all out in the open. Everything has to come to light, the truth. But it's that card that tells you it's sometimes we get carried away with our emotions, especially when we have woundings from the past. And those woundings of the past, if we don't process and integrate those shadow things, then we can end up being the deceiver, the aggressor, the coward, that runs away. But we could also be the one who says, no more. No more standing up to that bully, but by walking away. No more. I'm going to smoother waters. I'm going to forge my own path. No more will I conform to other people's ideas of what's best for me. And that, my dear friends, is Aquarius. Take care of yourselves and each other. Love you. Bye.